Dobreva. Is that how you say it?
Yes.
Nailed it.
Nice job.
Thanks.
Seriously.
New Zealand accent and everything. I'm really excited to have you on this show. Thank you for coming.
I'm excited to be here. Content is my favorite topic ever, so.
This is going to be really fun. I've followed you for, I guess, a while. We've been friends for a long time, but we've never really chatted. So this is a great chance.
This is a fantastic time to do it.
Yeah, right. I mean, people are just kind of like sitting around, faffing around, and I just think everyone should be constantly creating content.
Yeah, I share that belief.
And then one thing I've always liked about you and is that you've always created polarizing content, right? All your content, you have a lot of content to begin with, but you've never been scared to be yourself.
That's such an interesting way to say it, because if you dive back on that, it's like, why should you be scared to be yourself? To me, it's just, I'm the exact same way I am online as I am at home or with my friends. And I think a lot of people just, as soon as they log into their social media account and they realize, oh, this is for business, I need to be a different person. Mm-hmm. Something snaps in their mind and they forget who they are for a second or for years.
For years, yeah, they want to pretend that there's somebody else, and that's something I really admire about you. You've never, at least to me, it's never seemed like you're pretending. You're just, this is the person, these are your opinions, and if you don't like it, fuck off.
The door's there.
Yeah, exactly. You can go follow somebody else. Is there something that, like, how did I want to ask you how you got like that, but that's kind of like how you became yourself, which is not a real question.
Well, it kind of is, really, because I wasn't always that person, so it kind of is a relevant question, I guess.
Yeah, so tell me more about that.
I think a lot of people have some sort of a milestone where, because I mean, how many of us grow up being exactly the person that we're supposed to be and stay that person throughout our lives? Come on, that's not very real. And for me, I was born in a country where individuality and just rebelliousness, is that a word? I think so. And all of those things are not exactly encouraged. I mean, we are barely a democracy, if you ask me. I come from Bulgaria. Don't get, like, for everybody Bulgarian listening, I'm not hating on my country. I'm just spitting out some truths. So growing up there, imagine the exact opposite of this. That's who I was. And then I think, as soon as I left when I was 22, I'm just kidding, I'm 18 now. I'm totally not 29 years old. When I was 22, I left and I slowly started experiencing other places and other people. And they started telling me, wow, like you don't look, your look, the way you look doesn't represent your personality. I used to be a blonde Barbie doll wearing pink lipsticks and everything. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I thought I looked great. That's how everybody in Bulgaria looks. Everybody wants to be blonde and cute and humble and shy. And they were like, yeah, that's not who you are. So somewhere along the way, a few years ago, coincidentally or not, when I started this business, I changed my hair color. I completely rebranded my image to what I think it was always supposed to be. And when I did that on the outside, I kind of came to terms with who I am on the inside as well. And so ever since the beginning of my business, I just haven't really been afraid to be who I am, as you said.
That's super inspiring. It takes people, and honestly, a lot of people I think never do it, but it takes people a long time to define who they are and, even to project, not just to project it out into the world, but just to live that way, right? Not caring about how people react.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like that saying. I used to say this all the time. I was like, you just cannot give a fuck about what anybody thinks. I don't care about that's not true. To some extent, we all care. It's just about how long do you care for, and do you base your behavior on what people think and say. That's all. You're allowed to care. Like, you don't need to virtue signal and be like, I don't give a fuck. It's okay to give a fuck, but just don't let it reflect in your behavior.
I love that. Super cool. Well, why don't you tell the audience really quick a little bit about what you're up to in the world? What's your business? What are you doing?
So I run two businesses. My main one is I'm a brand strategist. So I run a paid inner circle, a community for people who want to build, grow, and scale their businesses, and also a high ticket agency, which, well, for everybody listening who has an agency, if we are still on lockdown when this airs, congratulations, you drew the short straw. And my second business is I help people build profitable membership sites.
Awesome. Nice and easy. You've said those before.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sometimes, like maybe 2 or 3 times.
So when you're inside of your memberships and your brand, I guess it's membership as well. What kind of content do you tell people to create to show their brand or to showcase who they are?
Content is honestly, it's so interesting because for a while there, people kind of only associated me with content because that's all that I talked about for years. And I had to transition from being the content person to being a brand strategist, branding queen, whatever. So it's funny that you asked that question. So I have a really specific system when it comes to creating content, churning out content, scheduling content, and all of that. And the way I see it, you need to be creating 3 types of content, and that's also what I teach my my BBS members in my inner circle. So the first one is an emotional connection building content. So just a lot of people don't understand the power of their story or of any story. Like talk about your milestones, create content that demonstrates to your audience what your values are, because your origin story is your place of true credibility. And if you don't understand that, then most likely you have an audience that doesn't really know you well, and oftentimes that's the number one reason they're not gonna buy from you. So to me, that's my favorite type of content. The second one is the content that builds trust. So a lot of people confuse trust with authority. So they think that the way to build trust is to just share testimonials. But actually, the way you build trust is by showing people that you are legit, that you're credible in your area of expertise. So for me, building trust means sharing very, very in-depth and specific value, not just me going, oh, branding is the foundation of your business. That's my advice today. Like, that's not anything. You can read that in a free blog post. But if I were to say, here is 23 tips on building a powerful personal brand, then that's something different. And the third type of content is authority building. So this is where you share case studies, testimonials. I love, for example, creating live videos where I interview my clients. So it's kind of like a live testimonial. I think there's nothing more credible than that, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. That's really interesting that you've defined it down to those three things. I have to say I've gotten trust and authority. I haven't defined them in those ways before. Super cool.
That took a while. I think it took me like 2 years to realize that.
Yeah. So you post a lot of polarizing content too. Where does that come from?
Well, honestly, I think there's this switch that flips in your mind. It's somewhere throughout your business, if you allow it to, where every single thing you see, you read about, you hear, you can turn it into a piece of content. And if you are not afraid to share your opinions, you can turn it into a piece of polarizing content. So that switch flipped for me maybe 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago, when I made my first controversial post, which I never would have thought that's controversial. That's more like 4 years ago. I'm realizing I'm really old. So that's when that attack happened in Paris on Charlie Hebdo. And all I did was I said that I stand for free speech, and that I believe that free speech is not, I believe in free speech except when I'm offended, right? Free speech is free speech. Everybody has the right to an opinion. And I was attacked by hundreds of people. I lived in Denmark at the time doing my master's degree, so a bunch of Danish people, a lot of people from my home country. And I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. And that's when I realized the most intelligent conversations happen when you do create polarizing content. Because of course you're gonna get some trolls and just some lunatics and morons, but a lot of people who respect you will not only not lose respect for you for having difference of opinion, but they will come at you with an intelligent argument, and sometimes even you will end up expanding your mind, not just them. So that's partly why I love polarizing content so much. It just opens up people's minds instead of just turning everybody into a robot with the same regurgitated crap.
Mm-hmm. How do you think people can stop themselves from being, I mean, obviously one of the byproducts of polarizing content is you're going to get people that don't like you. So how do people stop being worried that people won't like them?
Well, it's a simple realization if you think about it. Name one leader in the history of the universe that was not a polarizing figure, like was not loved and hated at the same time. It's impossible. So I think it boils down to people understanding what being polarizing really is and why people dislike you because of that. If somebody hates you, unfriends you, blocks you, speaks out against you because you shared an opinion they don't agree with, then really who is the person who should not be respected in that case? It's not you, it's them, right? And they never should have been in your life in the first place. So for me, whenever somebody leaves my space because of a polarizing post on social media, I'm really happy because now a space has opened up for somebody who shares my values, who is a potential client or a potential business partner. And let's not forget, you're running a business. Mm-hmm. Your goal is not to be liked. Your goal is to, number one, help people. Number two, make money. And polarizing content spreads your message to a larger number of people, aka you can help more and make more money. So honestly, it's a win-win-win.
Yeah, makes total sense. Logically, it makes sense. I think there's some emotional stuff for people around not being liked and not being accepted.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from the imposter syndrome, which is such a cliche, but I still see it every day. I mean, why would you be worried what someone thinks about you if you don't think that yourself? And it's a really harsh truth that people don't like hearing. But honestly, if somebody attacks you and goes, oh my God, you're so stupid for believing that. God, I don't know, what do people believe these days? That 5G is radiation poisoning or whatever. Yeah. If somebody comes at you and says that you're stupid because you believe some conspiracy theory, then on some level you think it yourself if you get offended, because being offended is a choice. I mean, of course, nobody wakes up one day and, oh, what am I going to get offended by today? But it's still a choice, whether consciously or subconsciously. So for those of you listening, next time somebody hates on you online, ask yourself the question, why am I feeling so offended over this? This is a stranger on the internet. Why do I care?
It's real, and that's so prevalent on the internet now. You can get attacked for anything, anytime, on any platform.
For real. I was attacked because I said that branding and marketing are different, which they are. And then somebody completely freaked out and wrote, I'm not joking, 112 or 13 comments on one of my status updates, just arguing with people. Not even me. I dropped off like at comment 20. Then they just kept arguing with people. And that became one of my most successful status updates because of that. Branding and marketing, that wasn't controversial.
I love it. You know Dan Henry, the ClickFunnels guy. I remember when he started to do his thing, and he said, all you have to do is stir up a storm of shit and make sure that you're selling something. And like, he just would go into these places and I'm not saying, anyone listening, I'm not saying just to stir up a shitstorm everywhere and start saying fake stuff, but if you are being polarizing, and that was, I think, his point, he just would go into places and say, argue with people and say all this different stuff, and people would go and check out his profile where he had, it was like a Facebook ads course or something at that time, and he made hundreds of thousands of dollars just from being a bit of a shit.
Literally the same. I used to do the same thing in big Facebook groups. Now, what I teach about controversy is just don't be controversial for the sake of being controversial, right? Because yes, you can make a lot of money with that, and I just see it as lacking integrity a little bit. There always needs to be, like, you always need to aim to do good, whether that's open up people's minds about something, educate about something, inspire. Maybe even that's also a legit reason to create polarizing content. As long as one of those is ticked, then that's good. But if you're just, I know I have a lot of people on my feed, especially this lockdown that we're in still has revealed people's true intentions and true colors on social media. So I'm connected to a lot of them who create the most polarizing, ridiculous content that has nothing to do with their business just to get some more clicks and some more engagement. And that does not look good to your audience.
No, I think there's definitely the people I know who are doing really well have stopped doing that. You know,
Yeah.
like there have been a few who were really controversial just for the sake of it, but they learned better how, and kind of, it's almost like a kid riding a bike, right? It's like, oh, and then eventually they go, oh, okay, cool, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with making mistakes as long as you change.
100%. So well, you said earlier about sticking to your values. Do you have a process for finding or defining your own values for yourself and or your business?
I have a framework for that, but honestly, it starts really simply. Most people ask themselves, what do I truly care about? Like, what am I really passionate about? My values are ingrained somewhere in that. And sure, that's true, but what you usually end up with is not your values, it's just some things you kind of care about. So the way I see it is do it the opposite way. I mean, I'm always kind of going against the grain when I develop these concepts. So I started asking myself, what makes my blood boil? Like, what types of behaviors do I look at in other people and other businesses that make me go, oh dear God, never, ever will I do anything like this? Then look at the opposite of that. That's most likely one of your core values. Because if your blood boils by seeing that person exhibit that behavior or say that or do that, then you're on the right path already.
That's a really good point. Do you have any examples of that? Like either just random examples or what are your values and how did you come up with them?
Yeah, I mean, actually, there's a point to be made there too, because one of my values, it's not the top one, but which sounds really bad, but it's integrity. And so it's not the top one.
It's on there. It's in the top 20, you know.
Well, I've figured out that identifying around 5 is usually those are your core values, and anything else is just beliefs, and there's a huge difference. But one of mine is integrity, and a lot of people, because we do this for clients in our agency, we help them define their values. A lot of them say something like, oh, you know, I think authenticity or I think integrity is one of my top values, but that's like what everybody else says, so we shouldn't put it in there. And I'm like, these are your core values. You're not going to define them based on whether they're popular with other people or too cliche. Like, if that's your value, that's your fucking value. So I just wanted to insert that in here. That I know I haven't answered your question yet, but I figure it's important.
It is, yeah.
Defining your values is not a popularity contest. First of all, they're mostly for internal use. You should be creating content that kind of showcase them, but you don't have to tell your audience, hi guys, my core value is integrity. Nobody cares. So examples. Well, I mean, that's when I started my business. I guess I kind of knew I care about just being different, but I didn't realize to what extent until I started my business, started doing competitor analysis. And so I don't want to bash anyone, but I examined over 20 people who do what I do. Every single one of them did the exact same thing. I'm talking same lead magnets, same value ladder, same names on their freaking courses, same topics in their blog post. And I was like, okay, I can make money doing the same thing because my audience is my audience and they're going to look to me, not them. So that's fine, but let's maybe not. So I made my life a bit more complicated by going completely against what they were doing. So that's when I started diving really deep into things like the neuroscience behind business and branding, which nobody else was talking about at the time. This was like 3 years ago. The psychology behind branding, like these deep hidden concepts that nobody talked about. And I mean, soon enough, people adapted and started copying that, which is great, I think, because the more we talk about this, the better. But that's how I realized being different, or whatever fancy name you slap on it, rebelliousness is one of my core values, because that just made my blood boil, that they didn't care about their audiences enough to just dare to be different and to inspire them to be different as well.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So that kind of leads me to I want to know, like, how do people, if there are lots of people in their I guess there are a lot of competitors who are doing the same thing, and even the values might be similar, how do you set yourself apart from a branding perspective from all these other people? I know that this, I get asked this all the time, but like how, because there's, you know, like life coaches or something, for example. It's like, oh my God, I literally wrote a song about it because it's like everyone and their dog wants to be a life coach. And there's coaches coaching coaches coaching coaches. Like how do you, and you don't have to use that as an example, but how would you set yourself apart in that environment?
I mean, whatever you want to call it, I call it a unique differentiator. You can call it unique value proposition, unique USP. It's honestly all the same thing with a fancy name, because we want to be so unique and different when we explain it to our people. But here's the key. A lot of people, when defining their unique differentiator, which most don't even do, which is fascinating to me, that you are trying to sell something without, you know, setting yourself apart. They make a mistake, and that is they honestly believe that they need to come up with something that is unique, that nobody else in the world has claimed yet. And I just look at that and think, girl, do you know how many people in the world do what you do? You're not unique. None of us are in terms of that. Not even your methods. Like, of course, you should absolutely have a branded framework with a name slapped on it that you should absolutely trademark to protect your brand, and that can become your unique differentiator. But when you're getting started, think of it this way. Here's a list of my top competitors. What unique differentiators have they claimed? Like maybe you teach people how to start a business, right? So this is actually a great example that I just came up with. So you teach people how to start a business. You look at your competitors, and one of them teaches people how to start a business in like a month. But they haven't branded their business around it. They mentioned that it takes a month, but that's about it. So then if you do the same thing, right about now is where most people would go, oh my God, we do the same thing in the same time frame. I should probably like change my time frame or do something different. No, you just have to claim what they haven't fucking claimed yet, because once you've done it, they can't, because they're going to look like a fool. So your best bet is build your branded framework, start saying everywhere on social media, I help you build your first or next business in 30 days or less. Find a way to trademark the shit out of that, and boom. Suddenly you're unique and you're different, and people would of course choose you instead of that person who didn't even bother to claim what they're literally doing and put it in their branding.
Yeah, awesome. So instead of trying to come up with something that doesn't exist, right, and then freaking out and going, maybe I wasn't meant to do this, you would look at what people aren't saying or haven't claimed about their business, and you could say that you're the 30-day business coach or something like that.
Yeah, and you don't have to be like, people think they need to be the first. I mean, sure, if you are, that could be great, could also be really bad, because maybe there's no demand for it and that's why you're the first, so think about that. But you don't have to be the first. You just have to be the first to think strategically about it and to claim it. I mean, when I named when one of my clients said the word the branding queen on one of their testimonials a few years ago, I was like, oh, this is perfect. I go online, there's 10 women on google.com calling themselves the branding queen. I'm like, So I slap it everywhere on all my courses, programs, cover photos, whatever the hell, and I apply for a trademark. A few months later, I get the trademark. And then a few months later, they all get cease and desist letters. And now I am the brand queen. So it's just about who thinks more strategically.
That's fucking awesome. I didn't know that. And that's like, it's cheeky as fuck, but it's, you know what? This is business, right?
It is. It's just about being strategic and protecting your brand. People just think they can build a brand around any word or phrase without protecting themselves. And then what happens 5 years later when that phrase, the branding queen, is all over your stuff, and some bitch like me comes along, trademarks it, sends you a cease and desist letter. Oh, your whole business now needs to change. I mean, I almost felt guilty for a second, but then I realized, you know what? If you just bought my stuff, you would know this. So good luck to you.
That's hilarious. I had no idea that that's what you did. And you know, there's so many people pussyfooting around in business. Like, oh, I don't want to, that person's already got that on their Twitter. So I have to think of something else. It's like, no, you can actually do that. And I bet you people listening to this are like, oh shit, I didn't even know that you could do that. I thought only the first person could, you know, trademark something or whatever. Super smart. That's a really great story. All right, let's change tack a little bit and talk about membership sites as well, because I know that's another thing that you do a really good job of. I think that's a lot of the content I've seen from you lately is about membership sites. Is that something you're pushing right now?
Yeah, so I divide my year between launches. I jump from launch to launch, from one business to the other. And while we're filming this, I'm just closing the next round for my program where I help people build a membership site in 6 weeks or less. See what I did there? 6 weeks or less.
Hey,
and when I started that business about 14 months ago, 15 months ago, I did it because I built a successful membership myself 3 years ago. And people kept asking me, how do I do that? How do I do this? And a lot of my members in there started their own membership sites following my advice that I gave, for free. And I was like, oh, there's something here. I started doing some competitor research. Please do that, you guys, by the way. And I realized very few people are teaching this. Well, now 15 months later, there's a lot more, but back then there was only a few in the space, like Stu McLaren, he's great as well. And I realized, oh, I can turn this into a business. So me and my team, we built a platform that's like a monthly fee. So basically it's a membership site for building membership sites. And I built my program. And that's when I had another realization, because I don't know if you guys do this, like if you have the budget, I recommend it. Buy your competitors' stuff. It's also a little bit cheeky, but honestly, you're spending money with them. So it's not that cheeky.
No, it's like funnel hacking.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
So I bought some of their stuff. I bought a few courses from the top ones on building membership sites and all of that. And I realized they had a huge component missing. Basically, they all threw people straight into building a membership site without preparing them in any way. And so I spoke to some of their clients who bought their stuff, and I realized they didn't end up doing anything because they didn't have their brand on point. They didn't have their positioning on point. Like they didn't even know their ideal client avatar. So I included that into my membership site stuff, and that's how I connected the two businesses, because you can't build a membership site without having a clear, focused brand, right?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It's smart to buy your clients or your competitors' stuff so you can figure that out.
Yeah.
When you say membership site, do you just want to define that for people? Like, how does it work?
So I think a lot of people think that a membership site needs to be this big, massive thing, which is kind of what I run. So I run a community. So it's actually a community where I am in a role of a facilitator, helping them build relationships between each other and not just with me. That's the definition of a community. And I'm kind of responsible for how far along they are in the learning process, how much their business has grown. So that's one type of membership site you can have, a community. That's not all though. Like if you Google, I think it's called Reflection Yoga. So that's a membership site that's like $10 a month or $15 a month. I call these subscription sites. So all you do is you give people access to a content library, maybe throw a few, maybe you have one group call a month or something, but the focus is on the content, not on the relationships and the experience. So that's why the price is so low. So these are the two main types. Most people that I work with, probably 90%, if not more, choose to build a community just because I work with people who see themselves as leaders and all of that. But some of them have built subscription sites too. And if you have the audience for it, because they rely largely on quantity and on ads, then they can be really successful too.
So a membership site with community versus just a recurring subscription for some sort of repeated service?
Yeah, in both cases you get paid monthly, but with a subscription site you just do a lot less. You just give them all you need to do with a subscription site is create content monthly, drip feed it to them, and that's all that they're paying for.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's really good. I mean, obviously recurring subscriptions are the best way to get money, right?
Oh my God, it's one of the first things I created in my business when I started it, my first community BBS. And ever since then, I've been really thankful to myself, even though at the time I had no fucking idea what I was doing. I didn't think about recurring revenue. I just wanted to create like a safe space for entrepreneurs. But I'm so thankful to myself because especially now with this coronavirus shit and this lockdown, a lot of people are struggling. And recurring income is what has saved many of us from, going bankrupt and helped us thrive instead of just barely holding on to survive.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And for getting people into your membership site, or if you're launching one, or if you've got one that's already going, do you have to do launches regularly, or can you just have content kind of bring people in randomly?
You can do it in an evergreen way for sure. I've done both. So I started with a closed community, which means I only opened it twice a year at the time, which was kind of stupid, very ambitious. It worked out for me, but doesn't work out usually in the very beginning. I suggest starting up with an open site where people can join anytime. So I always have done it with launches, but technically, if you run ads, you can just have people coming in on a consistent basis. If you're not running ads though, and if you just want to build it organically, it's kind of tough to do it that way because it messes with other launches that you have, other products you want to promote. So you're always running back and forth between, oh, my membership site is always open, so maybe I should promote that this month. Oh, but I'm launching this program. I don't know what to focus on. So I suggest start with an open one, get as many people as you can. Once you're happy with how many people you have, close it, focus on retaining them. Retention is way more important than launching for membership sites because it's about staying profitable. That's what recurring income is. And then once you're happy, they're happy, you know that they're going to stay for a while, start opening it up and closing it at specific times of the year. That also will build up the exclusivity of it.
Totally. All right, so let me ask you a couple of things here. For 2020, I know we're in lockdown. There's a few uncertainties going on. What are you most excited about, and what are you most worried about?
Oh, that's awesome. Ooh, okay.
I didn't give you any advance warning. Sorry.
No, that's
put you on the
great.
spot.
Oh, I love that. So do you mean business-wise or just in general?
Anything in general? Yeah.
Oh, I will be most excited about traveling again when I can do that because I've had to cancel multiple trips and my life is pretty much traveling. Like I'm always going somewhere. I'm based in Edinburgh right now, but
cool.
I love traveling and I do it all the time. And I also have like a cruise planned for this year and I don't see that happening. So that's what I'm most excited about whenever that shit is over. What I'm most worried about is, honestly, I'm kind of worried about some of my clients because I don't really work with, I have worked with physical businesses, but mostly I work with online service-based ones. I am kind of worried that in case some of them don't choose to adapt to the environment, because look at what's happening in the world. This is going to last for a while. Some businesses are allowed to reopen, but honestly, it's going to take until the end of the year until things are functioning, not even normally. It's a new normal, as everybody calls it. So we need to adapt, and I hate that word, pivot, as business. Seriously, everyone's saying it.
Yeah.
And I'm just afraid for some of my clients. I'm hoping that, they take advice because, oftentimes you've been doing something the same way for years and you're kind of resistant when people tell you, oh, this needs to change, because to them it's like, if it ain't broke, why change it? But the point is, it will be broke because times are changing. So if anybody listening can somehow relate to that, if you're way too stubborn for your own good, especially in business, then take advice from your mentors who know better.
Makes sense. What types of content do you usually prefer to put out, and which ones do you consume?
I love putting out videos. That's my number one thing. Right now, I am on a Facebook ban. I cannot live stream for another 20 days because I posted a Hitler meme. Who would have known?
20 days?
It was 30. It's just 20 left.
Shit.
It's painful because I'm all about live streaming. I'm not a fan of pre-recorded videos. I can do them, but it's just so much involved. And my audience, the number one thing they love consuming from me is live videos too, because that's the only place where I've told them they can pick my brain for free. Once the video is over, that's done. And you cannot message me or anything like that. But I'm a huge hypocrite because I don't actually like consuming videos from people, like from my audience, from people I follow. I'm a control freak. And when you consume a video, it's not at your own pace.
I'm the same.
fast,
I'm the
right?
exact same. Yeah, I'm the exact
Yeah.
same. I love doing videos. I need to see a transcription or I'm not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read so many books and I watch documentaries and stuff, but the whole time when I'm watching it, when there's like a slow moment, I'm just sitting in front of the screen being, fucker.
Yeah, I totally get it. Would you have any business books that you'd recommend people to read?
Ooh, actually, my friend Carla did a training in my community a few days ago and recommended a book I really like called, I think it's Fanatical Prospecting. Is it Fanatic? One of those two, Prospecting. That is a really, really good book that you
Okay.
should read. Don't ask me for the name of the author because I'm really bad with names. Um, let's see, what else? What else? What else? What else?
I'm writing that one down. I've never heard of it.
Really? Oh, I mean, it's because it's not, I don't like recommending super popular books like, oh, just go and read Russell Brunson's latest book because, and I mean, Russell Brunson's books, fairness, are good. They're not, I wouldn't say they're bad. I actually learned a lot from the first one.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where you've probably seen that recommendation 1,000 times already. So why
Yeah.
would I?
100%.
Yeah, but Fanatic Prospecting is really good. There was one called Never Lose a Customer Again. That's also pretty good. Business.
It's a clear value prop there.
I've been reading lots of fiction lately, so I'm kind of like, I
find you've got to read fiction sometimes to break it up.
100%. Of course, if you haven't read Breakthrough Advertising, then it may be super expensive, but honestly, that is so worth it. And this is not exactly business, and I know he's kind of a controversial guy, but I really like Jordan Peterson for some of what he says and does, and I like his 12 Rules of Life book. I read it, all of it. It's long.
I've
Twice.
got that at home.
It's quite good. A lot of people hate it, but honestly, why would you love or hate a book? Just take it for what it is. It's information. Information is just that. Don't put your bias on it. Just use it however you can.
Jordan Peterson's another one with some really good polarizing content.
Yeah, I bought a course from him that I'm just now realizing I never opened. It was about the whole personality typing thing that I fully don't believe in. But I was like, it's Jordan Peterson. This is the power of branding. The only person who would ever convince me to spend money on something like that is Jordan Peterson.
Interesting. What fiction books have you been reading then?
So I really love dystopian novels. That's like my number one thing.
Yeah.
And it's such a cliche, but because we're still in a lockdown, I've been reading 1984.
Oh yeah.
I read Brave New World again. I feel like I'm in whatever this crazy world is right now. Some kind of authoritarian regime. And I've been reading this series, which I'm almost ashamed to say, but it's called The Shatter Me. I think it's like 7 books. It's this author, Tahereh Mafi. Was it Israeli or something? She's
Shatter Me?
Yeah, so I think that's the name of the series. I'm not sure, but if you type that, you'll find all of them. The last one just came out, and it's also a dystopian novel about a young female whose job is to kind of, I guess, save the world. But I love novels that position us in a world, like let's say hundreds of years from now, when we've kind of destroyed everything, because that's exactly what we're on the verge of doing right now. And basically, how do we now deal with this? And how do we control people better? So it's interesting to me to read about that.
That is super interesting. I'm going to look those up. All right. Final thing. If someone is at a stage of business where they are cruising along, things are okay, they're fine, nothing special, a little bit vanilla, everything's meh. What's your advice to them?
Change everything. No, I'm kidding. I think they need to ask themselves a very important question. Am I here to lead, or am I here to just make money here and there and be content with my life? Because for me, being content, I mean, I spent 4 years in Denmark. That nation, everybody says they're the happiest nation in the world, and they're amazing. Don't get me wrong. Like Scandinavia is its whole little bubble, but I think they're content mostly, not happy, because life is so much easier there. They don't struggle with most of the things that normal humans struggle with in that society. And so I hate being content. for me, it's either be fully satisfied and happy or just get the hell out. So if you're running a business and you're kind of vanilla, like kind of okay with what's happening, but you know, you're not sure if you can do better or not, you can absolutely do better, and you should, because now that you have a business and you have a platform, you have a responsibility for that platform, for what you share on it. Like, I love looking at myself. It may sound arrogant, but look at yourself as a top celebrity. Like, freaking Kim Kardashian has what, 200 million people following her? Imagine you're that. Imagine 200 million people follow you on every platform. So how would you act? Like, what messages do you want to send out? What behaviors do you want to inspire from them? And then act accordingly with your content.
Yeah, super cool. I think that a lot of times being comfortable is like the enemy of progress, right? Because you're just, there's so many people. I mean, you're a nomad. I'm a nomad. There's so many people that they have a comfy job and it's corporate. They don't really like it, but like they have a nice car and they have to pay their bills, and so they just kind of keep doing their thing. But for me, a lot of times the best times have been when I was like, you know, everything went to shit and I had to reinvent myself from zero, you know, and because I was never just kind of cruising along and comfortable, it became almost easier for me than for them to just go to a new country and do a new thing, or totally change my business, or like totally reinvent my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, oh, life as a nomad. I mean, now I kind of have a home base, but I still consider myself that because I work fully online and I can go anywhere, anytime, even though I have a cat, the ruler of hell, Lucifer. Don't know him. But yeah, a lot of people just fall in this cycle of feeling comfortable, and maybe from time to time they ask themselves, oh, can I do better? But then they're convinced that they don't need to because they're doing fine without trying too hard. And you know what, there's nothing wrong with that. It's fine to not want to be a leader, as long as you understand that this is what you're doing. You're like betraying yourself if you do want to lead people and you do want to inspire people and you're not
100%.
doing it. You're betraying them too.
100%. Really good point. Where can people find more about you and follow you online?
Type the branding queen in Google. And if any other let me know. You can find me at Dobreva.com, and you can also find my inner circle, Badass Brand Squad, in Google. And by the time this is live, we should be running a free 5-day challenge, completely free, for real, in my group. So you guys should definitely join that. It's going to be epic, and it's going to be about selling with your content.
Amazing. Des, you're the best. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me. This was really great. Best questions ever.
Awesome. Thanks.